I'd like to do, we're at 5 minutes after. So while you guys are taking some time to fill out the Google Sheet and drop your name, location, and organization you're with, and something you're really proud of in the chat, I'm going to have introduce Esther. Esther Dureraj is our team lead here for Wisconsin Women in Conservation. She's an amazing lead. And really excited about this program. And so she is going to just kind of briefly run through Wisconsin Women in Conservation.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Sarah. As I take on, I will just share my screen. Just a minute. Oh, okay. Having issues. Okay, yeah. So I just wanted to talk a little about Wisconsin Women in Conservation, and most of us, we already, most of you are connected with the program for the past 2 or 3 years, and so it's been wonderful to be with all of you. And welcome today to this wonderful gathering of educators. I have a very short introduction because you're connected and you know what we do. We are basically a program that's funded by the United States Department of Agriculture, NRCS, Wisconsin. And we have 5 partner organizations. This program is led by Michael Fields Agricultural Institute, with partners of Wisconsin Farmers Union, Renewing the Countryside, Marble Seed, and our research and eval is done by eResources Group. This is our group of coordinators. Most of you would have seen them on the ground in different tri-county clusters working. And so these are the people who you will connect with, because they will be working with you all, connecting women landowners. And if you have, like, if there's a need to connect to women landowners, or if our people want some conservation plans to be written, they'll be connecting with you. And so and I'm sure you're familiar with most of our team of WiWiC coordinators. This is the tri-county clusters that we are in. WiWiC currently is working in 10 tri-county clusters. The lighter shaded ones are where we worked in the first iteration of the project. We still have our footprints there. We work in potlucks. We had a bus tour this year. But basically, our events have moved on to the darker colored tri-county clusters. If I have to list them, they're Trompealeau, La Crosse, Monroe, Dane, Rock, Jefferson, Green Lake, Columbia, Sauk, and Eau Claire, Chippewa, and Clark. So these are the counties that we are working in. I just wanted to go ahead and share the accomplishments of WiWiC in 2024. You'd be really interested in knowing what we did over the year, how many people we reached out. And so we are very proud to say that we reached out to, we did a total of 43 events this year alone, from January to October. 34 of them were in person in different parts of the state. 9 of it was in virtual webinars. We have a total RSVPs for different programs of like 2,073 women. And a total participant number, actual attendance, is 1,470 across our different programming, which is like a big number for us. We've been working with so many, just knowing that it's only 50% of the population, right? Like, it's only women we work with. So we are very grateful for all the work that our coordinators are doing in the ground, connecting to these women landowners and farmers, and also for you all for spreading the word about WiWiC and helping more women connect to the program, and to the women themselves, because they bring in more friends and neighbors. And so we're thankful for each and every one of them. This year alone, for the past 10 months, we've helped write 92 conservation plans, 23 of which is EQIP. So we have helped 23 women apply for EQIP, while other plans are written by the technical assistance that WiWiC provides, either through our staff, Eve Kramer, who's a conservation plan writer. So either she goes and talks with the women, does a land walk and write, or thanks to you all, NRCS folks and Pheasants Forever, county conservationists, many of you have helped us in writing these plans. And so thank you for that as well. So we really hope to 92 conservation plans to take shape in the hands of women. And and another exciting thing that's happened is MinWiC has taken off, Minnesota Women in Conservation. Based on what we've accomplished in Wisconsin. So that's a big yay. It's just, the program is just beginning in Minnesota, and we are glad to work hand in hand with them, guiding them through the process while seeing the results that we've actually had in Wisconsin. And then I just wanted to present the things that's coming up. So we have a seed rematriation webinar coming up next Thursday at noon. If you've not registered, I would request you all to go onto our website and register. Our winter webinars planning is happening, like something in January and February, as we usually have. Take care of yourselves, or something other than like just farm oriented. But what else? Do you have a business idea? I mean, we're trying to help women in different facets. The Marvel Seed Conference is coming up on that Saturday. I'm sorry, I forgot to put the date, and I had to do that. The February last week. That Saturday is when WiWiC and MinWiC together will meet at 9 a.m. with women who's there in attendance. And then we'll have a whole list of programming for 2025 in the Tri-County clusters that I showed you. The big one for educators, which I'm excited to announce today, is the conference that's going to come up on April 25th, 2025. Mark your calendars. We'd love to have each of you there. This is going to be a great session. We're going to talk about great topics. So please take a moment to block your calendars and have that. It's between 9 and 3:30 a.m. at Century World in Stevens Point. Just giving an opportunity for all of you to just have 2 hours drive time from different parts of the state and get to that place and go home on a Friday evening. And so thank you for being here today. Thank you for staying connected to the program in WiWiC. Please help us spread the word, have more and more women connect to us. And if you've not signed for a bus, that's a beautiful newsletter that Chris Marion brings out. There's a lot of events that WiWiC, not only WiWiC events, but she also collects all the programs that's happening in the state of Wisconsin for women, and it's beautifully done. So I would really suggest that you sign up for that. And then glad to have you all here today. Back to you, Sarah.
Thank you, Esther. It's incredible seeing all of the work that's being done by these amazing Wisconsin Women in Conservation staff. For those of you that are with WiWiC, can you please raise your hand just so that we are all aware of everybody that's a part of this team? It's amazing. Not only do we have regional coordinators, outreach coordinators, team leads, we have researchers, and we have conservation coaches. And so we're just really excited to be, and of course, our fearless marketing and advertising with Chris Marion. It's just amazing to have such an incredible team working on this all together. So thank you all for being a part of this. Now, for the next part, I am super excited to introduce one of our incredible speakers that is going to be working with us today. So it's my honor to introduce Yimmuaj Yang to our call. She's going to be sharing a little bit about her conservation journey with us. So Yimmuaj is a dedicated community director at Groundswell Conservancy in Madison, Wisconsin, where she's championing equitable access to farmland for emerging and BIPOC farmers. With a passion for sustainable agriculture, Yimmuaj is developing an innovative buy, protect, sell pipeline to make farmland more affordable through agricultural conservation easements. Efforts at Groundswell Westport Farm include creating pollinator habitats, promoting soil health practices, and encouraging cover cropping among farmers. She's an advocate for access to agricultural resources and economic opportunities. She's led high tunnel constructions funded by the NRCS EQIP program and supported Hmong families in home ownership through Habitat for Humanity. As a vegetable farmer herself, Yimmuaj incorporates soil conservation, erosion control, and water conservation practices to proactively protect and minimize harm to the soil and ecosystem. In her free time, she loves cooking, baking, and going on walks with her family. Yimmuaj, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm going to share my PowerPoint. Oh, and it was in the beginning. Oh, okay, there you go. All right. Again, my name is Yimmuaj. Thank you so much to Sarah and the WiWiC team for inviting me to speak with you all. Well, more like share my journey, my story with you all so you can hear how I came to where I am right now. So how and when did I know that I wanted a career in conservation? The truth is, I did not know. I had no idea that it would be here doing what I do right now. I wasn't even aware that there were careers in conservation. Growing up, I was told by my parents that I should be either become a doctor, a pharmacist, a lawyer. I should be looking at white, what we consider like prestigious white collar career options. And since I'm considered a 1.5 generation Hmong person, I think all of us, anyone in that generation were told to, like I said, become a doctor, lawyer, pharmacist, or do something that would make us just shine and stand out. I also didn't know that I what kind of career path I wanted. But like many Hmong children, I grew up farming with my parents. Not that we have a farm business, but I grew up poor. And so it was a way for our family to grow food so we could be self-sustainable and be self-sufficient. How did my career path evolved? Um, if I look back at my life, I think it's interesting. I My path to conservation probably started before I even knew what conservation meant and what it is. Um, and it happened way before, before I was 18. Growing up, I loved to volunteer at community gardens. We're really big, and we're very progressive and very supportive of community gardens here in Madison-Dane County area. I was very curious about um, the why. Why was soil cracking? Why were vegetables turning yellow? Why can water harm vegetables when they're supposed to be helpful? Why are bugs eating certain plants and so on and so forth? And so, um, like I said, that was probably, it started when before I was 18. And I'll talk more and then I'll be focusing more on my career path, starting from college to the present day. As you can see in my PowerPoint, I went to UW Madison and I did a double major, graduated there. Then I went on and I worked for um, Spring Rose and the Canyon Heights Community Center. So you see the blue arrow in between. So went from the university and then I got two part-time jobs. Then I went on to work for the Farley Center and continue my other part-time job. All this were part-time jobs, and they were, even though I was paid part-time, I was really working full-time for each of the places. Then I went on to Rooted. At the same time that I was working for Rooted, I was asked to go back to the community center to help because they couldn't find somebody to replace me, and folks that they were able to hire, there was just a really high turnover rate and there was a need. And so I was full-time at Rooted. I was at part-time at the community center. At the same time, I pursued a graduate degree at Lakeland University and working on my MBA. Then eventually I came to Groundswell. A little more in-depth information about my career path. So as you all recalled, I shared earlier that my parents wanted to me to become, a lawyer, pharmacist, a doctor. So I went to UW Madison thinking that I would become a physician assistant. Didn't turn out that way. So I graduated with a degree in cultural anthropology and languages and cultures of Asia. At that time, I thought that I would keep on going on an academic path and get my PhD. I wanted to become a really well-renowned Hmong women fighting for women's right and justice. And that didn't happen. That didn't happen because after undergraduate, I had to get a job. I had to get a job to help my family out. And that's how I ended up at the Spring Rose Growers Co-op, which is a marketing co-op, um, and at the Kennedy Heights Community Center, because these were two part-time jobs. It added to, a uh, full-time pay. So at the marketing co-op, I did a lot of technical assistance and system navigation. I also did a lot of interpretation, translation, worked really closely with farmers of color. So Spanish speaking farmers, Hmong speaking farmers, Black farmers, young emerging white farmers. So all farmers of all color, all background. It was it was really eye-opening to just the amount of barriers that um, farmers were facing in the real world, because this was my first time as a having a paid position where I actually got to see what that meant when you're out there in the world doing the work. Then at the community center, I was providing social service, I was providing social services. So I did a lot of things around job placement, housing, um, making sure people could access food because they were insecure. I worked with all low income families, and these were also families of color. Most of the folks that I worked with and served were Hmong families. So I was a jack of all trade at the community center. Then as Spring Rose decided that they were not going to apply for more funding, uh, the Farley Center then said, "Hey, come over," because the Farley Center and Spring Rose Growers Co-op were sister entities that were formed at the same time. And so the Farley Center said, "We need your skill sets. Just jump on over to join us." And so I continued the work that I was doing at Spring Rose with the Farley Center. Very similar work, but instead I was working for a farm incubator. Um, then I, you know, I worked for Rooted. And so I was holding multiple jobs at the same time. Um, so right now it's Rooted, but before when I was there, it was called Community Groundworks. And so Community Groundworks and Center for Resilient Cities merged to become Rooted. It was a community gardens network program that I was a part of, and what we focused on was leadership support, gardening support, providing gardening resources. We worked really closely with the city of Madison and Dane County to continue providing support for community gardens. For anybody who's local to Dane County, there's a history behind why Rooted took, over community gardens. And so I'm not going to go into that, but it was new things. It was a new thing that was happening at Rooted, and I got to be a part of that. So Groundswell Conservancy. Um, I'm at Groundswell Conservancy now, and we are a land trust in Madison. We serve Central Wisconsin, so Dane County and surrounding counties. We were established in 1983, and we have protected over 14,000 acres of land. I'm sure many of you guys are familiar with land trusts, but I've also got the question of, are you guys a living trust? And so I just want to provide a little clarification. Groundswell is, living trust is different from a land trust. And so, land trust, we do conservation and protection of natural land and resources. So it's two different things. Most of the land that we protected is with the town of Dunn, which is south of Madison. Unfortunately, I don't have a map to show where the town of Dunn is. If some of you aren't familiar, it's just south of Madison. And a lot of that is agricultural land. On this photo is a photo of Westport Farm, one of Groundswell's 2 community farms. The work that I do at Groundswell is also fairly new to the land trust world. So for those of you who are familiar with land trust played this crucial role in land protection and making sure their natural resources are protected in perpetuity. However, land trusts have not played an active role in providing equitable access to farmland. And so what I've been hired to do at Groundswell is considered pretty new and innovative for any land trust. When Groundswell bought 2 community farms in 2018, they'd never done this work before. They're really good with land protection, but they don't know anything about farm management and production. And, they have not really had anybody work with people and managing the people piece of community farms. And so I was brought in to manage these 2 farms. I was also brought in to see how, we could play a role in that innovative and creative idea around farmland access. This picture on the top left-hand corner doesn't do justice, but it's a photo of oats and peas, cover crops that I planted at the Westport farm. And then these are photos of 2 of our Hmong elders that are participating in a therapy garden at also Westport farm. The work that I'm doing is because it's all around access to farmland. It's things that, like I said, like land trusts usually don't do. And so we have a therapy garden where our farms are placemaking, where people get together. We provide our farms are a place for multi-generational, intergenerational education and socialization. It's a place where we're exploring the possibility of how people and nature can coexist through the lens of the different communities. This photo on the left here is a photo of one of our Hmong elders. It was during the 2022 fall harvest picnic. It was an event to celebrate a bountiful harvest year. And the elders wore their traditional Hmong clothes and they did a fashion show. And so as you can see, the attendees in the back enjoyed it very much, all the smiles and all the clapping. And then we, as a community farm, we also do a lot of collaborative land management. And so the top right-hand photo is a photo of Hmong farmers clearing out brush and clearing out brush in an area that was overgrown with trees and invasives and brushes that we didn't need. And the bottom photo is a photo of kids at Lakeview Elementary School. And so another story is Groundswell protected about 0.7 acres of land on the north side of Madison and donated it to Lakeview Elementary School because it was right in their backyard, and that land was going to be developed by Habitat Habitat for Humanity of Dane County. And so the school approached us to say, hey, this is our kids' backyard. This is the place that they engage with nature. And so we had to play a role in preserving nature space for low income and diverse kids. So, I have, what keeps me going is all the work that I do at Groundswell around making sure people have access to nature and land and food through the ways that are culturally appropriate to them, and getting the opportunity to take an agriculture conservation easement and looking at the future of farmland access, future of conservation and preservation, and how all of that, what I can do at Groundswell to essentially creating a new system at Groundswell to so that people can be in nature and around nature, be in places they love, and create happiness for them. Thank you so much. This is my contact information in case anybody would like to contact me.
Yimmuaj, I love this story that you shared. It's certainly not a straight line going through. And I love that you shared that you were curious about the whys and you started asking questions and kind of diving deeper into that. Like, why did water hurt the vegetables and why was the soil cracking? Because that does tell a lot of the story. So thank you so kindly for sharing your story. It's pretty powerful. Personally, I'm glad you got a job at Spring Rose Garden and can start thinking about the impact of soil health on out there, on nature, on land, and then starting to bridge that communication between both nature and the connection between nature and the land and the community, and that they can coexist together. That's pretty awesome. So thank you so much. For sharing your story with us and having that out there. As we transition to our next speaker, I'm super excited to present to and share with you. I want to put in the chat, how many years have you worked as a conservation educator, or how many years have you worked in conservation education? Maybe you're not working in conservation education and you're looking for a career in conservation. That's fine. Add that in the chat. Maybe you just started within the last year, nothing to be ashamed of. If it's your whole life, great. But yeah, just kind of fun to see how many years you've been in conservation education. Now it is my honor to introduce Thao to present to us about a little bit about her education here, or her story and career in conservation. So is the founder and CEO of Mayflower Farms. It's a mother-daughter small-scale specialty crop and fresh flower farm located in Wheaton. Is also an accomplished nonprofit professional, co-founding and currently the executive director of Brown Women Power Coalition, Inc., which is a statewide coalition whose mission is to build the capacities of Black and Brown advocates and their communities to end violence against women and queer and trans folks and young people. In 2024, she founded the nonprofit organization Power Up Eau Claire, Inc., whose mission is to amplify the voices and the experiences of the Hmong community in the greater Chippewa Valley. Aside from her farm and nonprofit passion, is also the owner and consultant of Thao Consulting LLC, which is dedicated to fostering equity, diversity, and inclusion while honoring the rich her and history of organizations and businesses they work with. Has been recognized in the communities she works in. She's the recipient of the 2021 United Bridges Award, the 2019 Volume 1 Vanguard Award, and the 2016 Eau Claire's Children Legacy Outstanding Award. In 2021, Thao was recognized by members of the Wisconsin Senate with a citation by the Senate. She's the proud mother of 5 children, and outside of her advocacy work, she spends her time with her family and traveling. It's an honor having you on the call. I can't wait to have you share and tell us a little bit about your journey.
Yes, thank you, Sarah, and so great to be here with all of you today. I think off the bat, you should know that I never imagined a career in conservation. I think sometimes I'm still like, am I really doing this work, right? And trying to see like bits and pieces of like, okay, where is it I'm doing that is conservation? Because I think sometimes hard to see, and so I'm really glad to be able to share with you my work and how it really is like pieces of all the things I do that are like conservation and how that it's like infused into the farm that we're at and the work that I do in community and all of that. So yes, like Sarah said, my name is Pa. My pronouns are she, hers, or Pa. And I've been farming with my mom for the last 17 years, right? Let me get my screen on. Okay. Can you see my screen okay?
We sure do.
Okay. So I've been farming with my mom for a very long time. My family came to the United States when I was 12 as refugees of the Vietnam War. Um, and we've been here in Eau Claire since then, right? And so Eau Claire has been my home. It's the only place that I grew up in that I really consider my hometown. And so a lot of times when folks ask me where you're from or whatnot, I'm like, I'm from Eau Claire. And sometimes people do a double take because they don't think someone like me is from Eau Claire. So a little bit about my flower farm. It is me and my mom that runs the farm. And what really got me into turning my mom's passion for farming into a business was um, and during the COVID pandemic, right? And realizing that all the work that she's been doing all these years in farming, selling at farmers market, um, feeding community, donating to food pantry, all the great, amazing work that she and other Hmong farmers here in Oakland has been doing are often like unrecognized, right? Because they don't have like a business or they don't know how to like do work in a way that helps them access different grant programs or different programs that are able to help them grow and be and do more in the farming industry. And so in 2020, as I have all the time in the world to sit at home during the COVID pandemic, I'm like, okay, we're going to do this, right? We're going to turn our passion for farming into a business and to really grow into this community that we are now like really entrenched in living in. And so, yeah, and so then that dream of like really having land and really having our own piece of um, land that we can own and do a lot of stuff on came about, right? And I think my mom has always wanted to own land as a refugee of the war, right? But never having like the resource or the opportunity to do that. And so then as I became farming with my mom after coming home from college, I grew to like really I grew to be really passionate about also like land access and how can I access land for us so that we can continue this history of farming within our family. So in 2022, things just kind of aligned, right? I was able to, purchase a plot of land um, that now house my farm and now that I live on too. And so that opened up so much opportunities for us to like be very intentional about how we're moving with our farming, but also how we're building with community and how we are, practicing conservation and that kind of thing. So some of the prompt questions that really tug at my heart was, what brought you to conservation and then what keeps you going, right? And I want to say that what brought me to conservation, all the history of like my mom, right? So even going back to Laos and Thailand, how Hmong folks are very agricultural folks, right? We've learned to farm in the highlands of Laos. we've learned to grow vegetables for ourselves and our family, but very little access to water, with very little access to fertilizer. And Hmong folks are able to go anywhere. And so the more that I farm with my mom and the more that I talk to other Hmong farmers in the community, I've learned that they are so innovative and creative about how they farm. And so that's one of the things that keep me going is that learning of my history and my people and how they farm over the years, right? But back in Laos and Thailand, my mom, they were really farming for self-preservation, right? For survival, because they live in the highlands of Laos, and so they can't really get to ability to buy commodities that you typically would get at a grocery store. So it was really like farming for yourself and your family so you can survive. And then, having a farmstead in the highlands of Laos. So having your chickens, all of that to really help you survive, right? And then coming to Eau Claire, my mom continued that tradition of farming. And not only is it just farming to for yourself now, but it's also farming to provide for your family, right? And so I think a lot of the Hmong farmers that you will come in contact with, they start farming as a way of survival for themselves and their family, as a way of bringing additional income into the household when they don't know when they are working minimal wage jobs, when they are not when they don't have access to other secondary income. And so that became the thing that kept my family's farming here in Oak Cliff going, was knowing that we need to farm in order to supplement my mom's income so that she can take care of us, right? And so growing up in this community, going to high school, going to elementary school, and having to do all of that, it was a necessary survival thing to farm, right? And so for me, growing up, farming wasn't something that I liked, because it was every Saturday it had to be the farmers market, because that's what we had to do, right? In order to have money in the summer to buy school clothes and to do X, Y, and Z and to pay the bills. And so it wasn't something that I loved doing. And I tell that story all the time because I think that's a story that's very true to a lot of folks, right? And earlier when Yami mentioned how being a 1.5 generation Hmong refugee, the push to be in other not high, but in other office jobs, to be a doctor, to be X, Y, and Z, aside from being in farming, that's real true. Because growing up, we don't see the benefit of being a farmer, right? Being in agriculture or being in conservation. There's none of that in our community. There's always that push to be a doctor, to be a teacher, to be an office worker, to do all of that, because our family knows how much work it is to work in the field, right? And so they want for us what they never have for themselves. And so that push is very, very was the thing that I think a lot of younger folks, folks my age, right, and Yami's age, are now no longer in farming, right? And so you see a lot of older folks at farmers market. You see a lot of older folks who's in farming, but not younger folks who are into it. And so that's what keeps me going too, because I'm farming is beautiful. It's a way to really uphold our culture and our tradition. It's a way to know where our food is coming from, right? And it could be a business, and it could be sustainable, and it could be something that you do for yourself and your community. But our community and our young people has turned away from that. And so what keeps me going is to do the work that I'm doing, and do how I'm running my farm and how I'm sharing out my passion. I'm hoping that it will ignite the next generation of young Hmong farmers to also be interested in farming, right? And to also get them to see that this is something that they can do for themselves. So I'm mindful from, we grow up ourselves and our family. I really am invested in continuing that agriculture tradition in my family, right? And not just in my family, but the Hmong culture. And so what I'm learning from my mom, I'm actually implementing on the farm, right? And really doing some really practicing Hmong agricultural practices that are more sustainable, right? And that are like true traditions to like how Hmong people has formed, right? And but also like really growing things that my family would eat and then my community would eat. And so really diving into making sure that as we're growing vegetables and flowers, that we are also very intentional about how we're growing also for community. And so growing specialty crops that are culturally specific foods, right? So like bitter melons, mustard greens, things that like all people would typically eat that they don't have access to the farmers market or not at the store or other places in the community. And then my farm also started as a project from my mom because of her health, right? She was diagnosed with cancer right before the pandemic, and it was really hard because we didn't know she was going to survive, right? And but she loves farming and she wants to be out in the field. And I'm like, well, I don't want you to be on a rental plot where we don't know where you're at, right? Where we can't see you. Um, and when something happens to you, and we don't know that something happened to you, right? And so that dream of like owning land was to also have a place where she could be, where we could be together, and we can be, so we can see her, we can, be there with her as she's farming. But it's also like a really good opportunity for me to bond with my mom. I think, when you have someone that goes through a health scare like that, you really see like how limited time is for people, right? And the amount of time that you want to spend with your loved ones. And so I know that for me to spend time with her, because she's always so busy on the farm, like I had to dive deeper into farming and into the agriculture so that I can really spend intentional time with her. So that was also the reason for creating my flower farm. And then one of the neat things that I really like about and really appreciate about the farm as we grow is our focus on community, right? We have you picks on the farm, and so folks come out and pick their own flowers and vegetables and whatnot. But we also do a lot of workshops on the farm, right? We work a lot with uh, DECAP and with the UW Extension. And I've also, through my consulting business, worked through some grants to provide workshops. And so we've done like Kubot workshop on the farm. We've done like a solar house workshop on the farm. We've hosted a WiWiC a farm visit earlier this summer, right? So do all these things that brings community to the farm, and that makes the farm this beautiful place where a community can gather and where we can really do all those things together. Immersed with flowers and beautiful country air and all of that. And so that's something that I have really learned to appreciate about my flower farm. And that's something that keeps me going is all of that, is having community in the farm, doing all the great things that we are aiming to do, but also like hearing how folks really love coming and spending time there. And then I think part of like, having land, right, is the ability to really practice conservation practices in a way that you can, do different trials on, right? And so one of the things that we do really well at my flower farm is water conservation, right? Because we don't have a well out in the field. And so how do we conserve water in a way that, we're still growing our crops, right? But not using a lot of water. And so one of the things that people always ask us is, do you irrigate in the farm? Like, no, we don't irrigate, right? We do a lot of like hand watering when we need to, but a lot of it, it's like, like doing really practicing like Hmong conservation practices that makes it easy for things to grow without a lot of water, right? And I think that's one of the things that is really cool about Hmong agriculture is that like our elders just know like, how to plant like things next to each other or where to plant things so that you don't need a lot of water, that kind of thing. And then really farming for future generations. So I think having 5 kids, and knowing that like I want to create a better world for them, and I want them to see for themselves so they can create a better world for themselves through agriculture, through like being a good stewardship, a good stewards of the land, and that they can really like, envision themselves within this community, right? And I think it goes back to like my work in advocacy. On the other side is, like doing all of that so then my kids can have a home that they feel safe, loved, and that they can grow in and be part of the bigger community. And yeah, so that's what got me going. So here's some pictures of visits in the farm. This picture here, that's my son, and this is what we had the WiWiC farm visit. The rows that they're in here are ground cherries, and I think a lot of folks have never really seen how ground cherries were grown or what they were. So it was just really fun and really cool to like be able to walk, to give a tour of the farm and really show folks like all the things that we grew on the farm and how we grew that. This one in the middle is that we had a soil testing workshop, and so we had farmers that came out. They were able to sample the testing kits, the testing tool uh, that they can see. And so we actually did a demonstration on how do you take a soil test on the farm, right? What do you need to like take it? And like actually having tools that people can take home that day to borrow so that they can do their own tests. And the other neat thing is that through this kind of workshop, we're able to like we're able to create access to farmers to do soil testing who otherwise would not be able to do that, right? And so one of the things that we did at the workshop is that we covered the testing fees of the soil tests that folks would do. And so they'll sign up, they'll take the tool bag, they do the test, they bring it into a central location. So then we have to send it in to the lab or anything. We gather all of the tests and then we send it in. And then they get a copy of the results and then we get a copy of the results and we can kind of walk them through, okay, what is on your test? What do you need to amend your soil? That kind of thing. And so those are the kind of things that I love doing and that keeps me going is being able to be a community with more farmers and be able to like create innovative ways for folks to access programs and services that they otherwise won't be able to. This picture here with the folks are, during one of our UPICs on our first year, right? And I think that brings me a lot of joy to like see people that come on the farm and just really enjoy like the space and the ability to like see how things will grow and and be able to like cut their own flowers or pick up their own vegetables or just being out there to like enjoy the fresh country air. And so for me, like being able to do that was really important because, as I was putting my flower farm in place, I was also going through a lot of hard times in my life. And I find myself out in the field, like just sitting, like even before we planted flowers and vegetables, I would just go out there and just stand in the field and just breathe. And I'm like, this place has so much potential to like really have people just be grounded in themselves, right? And grounded in the moment. And if I can find myself here and feel grounded with all of the things that are happening in my life, I want to be able to do that for other people. And so it was really a beautiful thing to be able to bring community on the farm and also have them feel that way that I did, being on the land and just being present and be able to enjoy the nature that is surrounded on the farm. So some advice that I would give to conservation workers, one is that farmers know more than you think, right? And I think I always say that because a lot of times, right, in my experience with TA providers and conservation workers, is that I often felt like I was being talked down on, right? And that like my experience or my mom's experience as a lifelong farmer are not really uplifted or seen or considered, right? And there are also many beautiful like agricultural practices that are like very culturally specific that our farmers do that are not like seen as conservation practices, right? And so like when I mentioned earlier about knowing like what vegetables to like plant next to each other to conserve water or to provide shade or whatnot, those are kind of things that are often not seen when conservation worker comes out, right? Or like they're not uplifted. And so, you know, I think a lot of my experience with interactions with agriculture TA provider and all of that prior to me like becoming a coach and you know, prior to like my farm has always been okay, you know, you don't know anything. So here we are, we're gonna come teach you this, this, and this, and this is how you have to do it. If you don't do it this way, then it doesn't then it means that you're not like, you know, practicing conservation, right? And so that's always been my thing is, you know, our farmer knows more than we think they do. And they've been farming for their whole lifetime, right? Like my mom and other elders like her that are farming for farmers market or whatnot. They've been farming forever. And so I always wanted to uplift the things that they know and that they have so much to teach us, right? Then we think we have to teach them, right? So really taking moments to like when you're all in conversation or when you're all in community with farmers, particularly like BIPOC farmers, for you to really hear the stories that they're telling you, right? And for you to really pick out those things that they're telling you about how they are like practicing farming on their land or on the rental land, right? But maybe through those conversations, you can pick out, okay, these are like conservation practices that are like not traditional conservation practices, but it works in this way. And so how then do we capture that and uplift it, right? So that's an advice that I would give. And I think, you know, access to programs for BIPOC farmers, I think there is still a huge disparities, right, in terms of who can access programming for programming and grants and services, right? And that's what I'm really passionate about through both my work at Black and Brown and Power Up and, you know, with the work that I do on my farm is how do we create access, right? How do we make it easier for people to access services and programs? And I can tell you, like, even as like someone that is like someone like me, right? I had a hard time accessing and understanding government grants, like the equip grants, right? When I applied for that, there were so many steps to that, right? And so I always wonder, okay, for someone like me who knows people, right? Like I'm well connected to the agricultural community. I know who my representatives are at the NCOS. Like I know people from DACAP. I know people UW Extension, and they can help me make all these connections. And it's still hard for me to like talk to people. It's still hard for me to access that. And so how much harder is it for someone who's not like me, right, to access programs and grants? And so that's something that I always want to be that it should always be at the forefront of conservationists and TA providers. How do we create better access, right, for BIPOC farmers and disadvantaged farmers who typically would never have access to those programs, right? And I think access too needs to look differently, right? You can't just be telling me about a program and then expect me to like know how to like apply to that grant or, you know, who to reach out to, right? Access has to be more than that. It has to be more intentional. It's got to be deeper. And so that's why when we do our workshops in the farm, we actually bring people who are the folks that manage that program or knows, or, you know, taking the application or whatnot, so we can actually introduce them to the farmer, right? And have like a face-to-face and say, hey, this is your person, you know, they're here, you see them, you meet them, and here are the information, and that's how you can make that connection, right? So those kind of access points and be able to like create an innovative way for folks to access programs that is beyond just, you know, give me a pamphlet and see if I can read it to understand it. and apply for. Those things are very important. And so I will offer that as advice. And then time and effort, right? I think, BIPOC farmers does have a lot of skills to give, and they do have, a lot of knowledge to share, right? And what I've learned in this work, doing this work, doing not just work, but like community work overall, and why I started my consulting business is that like I I do have, a lot of skills and a lot of information, a lot of knowledge I can share. But like I think a lot of times folks aren't compensated for the time and effort, right? And so they will just be expected to like do X, Y, and Z, to come and do workshops, come do trainings, um, come speak here and come speak there about their experiences or about the work that they're doing. But then there is no time and no effort to also making sure that those folks who are giving the time and effort to really improving that workshop or to showing up to also be compensated for the time and effort. So I think that's so really important overall in like agriculture and farming, and also like other TA things, right? So that's why like through our workshops that we do, we provide stipend for farmers that comes, right? It's a way to not entice them, to engage them, right? Because I think it's important to also value their time, right? Even if they're all coming to learn, we're also learning from them, right? And so those things are like things that I would like really, share out with like other conservation folks. And I hope that it gives you some things to think about as you continue to work with folks in the community, right? And as you continue to engage with BIPOC farmers throughout the state, that you are more intentional and aware of the things that folks may also need besides what you think folks need. And that's it. I'll take any questions if folks have anything. Otherwise, you can contact me at myflowerfarm@gmail.com. You can also follow us on IG as 715 Flowers. We're also on Facebook as well. Thank you.
You are such an inspiration. Thank you so kindly for sharing the stories that you shared. I love that your mom was looking for land and it brought you passion to look for land, not only for yourself to be together and bond with your mom, but also passionate about helping others with land access, and that kept you going with the innovation and learning and history. That's just amazing. Something that stuck out to me is that, working with the youngsters in the community. So growing leadership in the community is gonna in agriculture is really important. And can either of you, maybe both of you, share some of the youth leadership development work that's going on in your community? Anything that's happening there? I don't know if it's
Yeah, I can start. So right now there isn't really anything, right? And that's why I'm also very passionate about like how do we create pathways for young people to enter agriculture, and to be interested in farming, right? And that's I'm hoping that through the work that I'm doing, my different careers, that I'm able to infuse, those pieces into it. I know one of the things that we're going to be doing at Powerful Player, which is the new nonprofit that I funded and founded, and we just got our 501(c)(3) yesterday, so I'm really excited about that. But to be able to do more youth engagement work, right, in the community, and to really bring youth into the field, and to be able to like not just do that, but like teach our young people like what is it in the community that they should care about, right, and to make them like socially conscious. And I'm really passionate about that because I'm like, if I have known the things I know now earlier in my life, like how much more work I can get done, right? And so that's often like what keeps me, what motivates me to like want to do youth work and to invest back into young people. So I'm hoping that, in the next couple of years, we'll be able to have like amazing programming, for youth in our community to really engage in, not just in agriculture, but in the community work that we do as well.
And Yimmuaj, I'm going to bounce that question over to you.
Yeah, so not directly, well, not actively in the work that I'm doing, but at Groundswell, how we are working with young people so that we will have future conservationists are through through two things. We have been partnering with Operation Fresh Start, and they have a conservation academy. So we hire them to come out and do land management at our preserve. About 2 years ago, one of my coworker actually secured funding to hire a summer intern that graduated from Operation Fresh Start's Conservation Academy. The other way that we are involving young people is through food, not necessarily hands-on food production and gardening, but more through talking about food and where food comes from. So kids better understand that food doesn't just come from a grocery shelf, that it's grown out in fields from soil. It gets turned into something, then you see it at the grocery store.
I love that. And it's something that each and every one of us have the ability to do is just talk about the food and where it comes from, get to know our farmers. Both of you stressed that community gathering is important. And I think that I can't echo that enough. I see your question, Erin, or your hand up, Erin. For just a second, though, I want to ask if either of you, Pa or Yimmuaj, want to share about a mentor. Have you had a mentor that you've worked with that you want to call out and thank in this work you do?
I don't know if I have a mentor. I would just say through my work, but what really brought me into the work that I'm doing um and to think about what I'm doing as a part of conservation effort would be one of my former supervisor, Jim Welsh. He was the one that hired me at Groundswell, invited me in, listened to my ideas. Then I really learned all these conservation terms and understood, yeah, I was practicing conservation all my life. I've been
Yeah,
asking conservation questions. The work that I've been doing is conservation related.
yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, I want to really highlight Jack, I think Yang. He used to work at DECAP a long time ago, and he was the first Hmong person at DECAP. I remember working with him doing community work when I was executive director of the Hmong Association here in Eau Claire. And he would come up from Madison, right, and engage my community and like all these educational farming workshop, right? So I've organized like pesticides workshop with him with UW Extension and other workshops in my early years of like advocacy work. And I always appreciate him because I love how community driven he was, right? And that even if he wasn't from my community, like it just feels so natural to have him be part of my community that way. Right? And for him to really like be to love Hmong people so much that he travels all over the state to hold these trainings, right? And people come because they know Jack, right? Not because of the workshop. They come because they know him. And so he really aspires me to like, okay, do things creatively, but innovatively, and to also like push organizations to always do better and be better for like the folks we work with, right? And to never be like so stuck in how we do things that we can't see that there is different ways of doing things. And so I know with him being a deck cap, there's probably a lot of like red tapes he has to go through, a lot of different things that he has to make sure that it's lining up for him to do what he does. But he never showed that, right? For him, it's always about community and all of that back end stuff. Like he got it. But like for him to show up fully for community, that was what inspires me. And so like I really want to highlight him in the space. I'm not sure where he is now, but if you know him or see him in the community, tell him I'm say hi.
I love that. That is awesome. Another thing that you earlier had mentioned is just how you enjoyed getting grounded, just standing in your field and breathing. And, it makes me, how you're comfortable around Jack just makes me think about how standing in your field, having a conversation, just getting grounded. So, Erin, I'm going to open the floor to you to ask your question.
Hey, thank you. I started writing it in the chat and I'm like, I don't know, maybe just use my words or try to. But first I'm like, I'm like really just want to shout out and say thank you, Nima and Thao, for like just the way you walk the world and just how you show up in the land and people care. That is just evident in what you shared. And I don't know when you sleep, but hopefully
Amen.
underneath your flowers. I don't know. So I also like appreciate your sharing about just like the assumptions you can check at the door when we're thinking about access and for programs. I'm kind of asking this from a landowner perspective, which I know is like complicated history in our world, right? But what are some assumptions you would have for like a landowner who wants to like open up their farm? Like, I don't know, I guess like how do you start, or not that you need to offer that advice, but I'm just wondering about like, I'm aware, spit it out here. I'm talking in circles. I would like to, figure out how to like make our farm more inviting, or for example, like other white landowners in areas, and not really not like you need to tell me where or how to do it. I need to get my own education, but like it's the well-intentioned piece, right? The complicated kindness, like I don't know, maybe just to open it up to ask about power dynamics and navigating that when it comes to land access work you do. So. Does that make any sense? I kind of rambled. I just feel it in my gut that I'm like, how do we kind of help unpack that big question in the room? So, but thanks.
Either of you feel like you want to jump on that one?
Maybe there's a better space. I don't know.
I would say aligning values and being transparent from the beginning. Many times what landowners want are well intended, but then there isn't transparency, or landowners assume that the renter wants and needs certain things, but they don't, or that the renters do want something, but landowners are saying no. And so there just needs to be, intimate conversation around how can land seekers, renters, or renters and landowners work collaboratively together. What's the give and take? Where can the two parties meet in the middle? Because landowners also aren't rich, or at least our average landowners aren't rich, right? And so the needs by land seekers are high, especially with anybody who is familiar with vegetable production or specialty crop production. There's a high need and high demand in making sure that productions are sustainable and thriving. So yeah, that conversation, aligning values, being transparent.
Yeah, I would just I would just echo what Yami has said, but also like expectations for each other, right, as renters and landowner. I think a lot of times what I've seen with renters is that there a lot of times there are no like contract, right, and there are no like spoken or like written. There may be like spoken agreements, but there's no like written expectations from the landowner to the renter, or from the renter to the landowner. And so not having those clear expectations can cause tensions at times, right? And like not having like the ability to have longevity in renting land is oftentimes really hard for farmers because they don't know what kind of crop they can plant, right? If you plant a perennial like strawberries or rhubarb, that takes years to like mature, right? And if you don't have it in writing about how long you can rent that land, then you lose all of that investment in your crops. And so I think just being really clear about that and having like expectations for each other um, so that you can, know what you can do. What is the cost for small parcels to rent? So right now it's about $300 an acre on my in my area to rent. And so depending on how many acres you're renting, we're looking at about $300 an acre for the season.
And that can be all over the board, depending on location, depending on, how much you can plant or the soil health. There's all kinds of, but yeah, I think that's right in the ballpark.
Yeah, I've seen $300 to like $600, and so depending on, like you said, all of the other factors too.
Absolutely. I think there was one other question in the chat, and I know that the one question that was in the chat was in regards to where do either of you sell, or do you sell at farmers markets? Because I think both of you being farming, it'd be amazing to support each of you. So Chris answered on your behalf about selling at the Eau Claire Farmers Market. Is there any place else that you sell?
Yeah, so we sell there on Saturdays, and then on Thursdays we're up in the Berrien County Market. And then we also sell to the this last season, we also sold to the LFA program. And so we're hoping to be able to do more of that this year, depending on how the phone bill turns out.
Fantastic. And how about for you, Yimmuaj? You
My
sell?
family sells at the Westside Farmers Market here in Madison. We are really small, so we only do one Saturday market.
Perfect. That's awesome. I'm going to open the floor for any additional questions, and then I'm going to hit on a couple fun facts. While you all are thinking about different questions, I want to remind you that there is a Google Sheet for networking. And if you didn't sign up for that Google Sheet yet, we're going to drop that in the chat so that you can sign up and be a part of our educator network team. And is there any additional questions that I missed in the chat, or any others that have some questions? Thank you, Chris, for dropping that in the chat. Hearing no questions or seeing nothing else, I do want to raise awareness of a couple things. I don't know if you are all aware, we do have a podcast here with Wisconsin Women in Conservation. It's really fun hearing from amazing women across the state of Wisconsin. Caught myself across Wisconsin who are doing some incredible work in regards to conservation. We also do have another webinar coming up next Thursday. And this is all about Indigenous seed rematuration. So feel free to sign up for our winter webinar that's starting next Thursday at noon to 1. In addition, I want to see if you're aware that we do have a podcast. We've got the podcast, we've got the listserv. If you're not a part of the listserv, please sign up for our newsletter on our website first. If you sign up for that newsletter, then you can request to be added to the listserv. We'd love to have you. In addition to that, we have a blog. And last but not least, since this is an educator network call, I just want to share that our spring Wisconsin and Women Educator Conference is going to be coming up. We have a date, so save the date for April 25th at Century World in Stevens Point. It is listed up on our website, not to register for it yet, but it is there to, see and think about. It will be up. We're hoping in the next couple of months. We're doing lots of big plans, and I just cannot wait to share out what's taking place on April 25th at Stevens World in Stevens Point, or in Century World in Stevens Point for our educator conference. again, want to thank you, Yimmuaj and Pa, for the incredible sharing of your journeys, sharing these stories out. It's been an honor to hear from each of you, the incredible work that you've done out there, the inspiring work. And though it might not be a linear journey, you are exactly where you both belong. And it's just amazing hearing from you. And I'm so grateful we had the opportunity to share out. Thank you all. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And we're looking forward to the next time.